Hi friends! Welcome back to my channel. As many of you know, I've been working remotely from Cape Town for a while, and one thing that has always been really high on my bucket list is to visit Kruger National Park. So this time around, me and my boyfriend finally decided to go for it, and we planned a 6-day safari trip to Kruger National Park. Planning this trip was honestly quite an adventure in itself. There are so many different options of how you can visit Kruger National Park. You can drive through the national park yourself. You can also do like a guided tour where you are a lot of vehicles. You drive your vehicle yourself, but you can go more off-roads. There are different thoughts of accommodations, etc. So we were a bit overwhelmed because we wanted to see the big five, but we also didn't want to break our bank, so we wanted to do it a bit on a budget. And I personally had a bit of a trouble finding all of the essential information online, so that's why I decided to do this video. And in this video I will break down everything that I wish I would have known beforehand, like from how much we paid for each and everything, to like what kind of different accommodations are out there, what to pack, and what are the best tips from my point of view of how you will be able to see the big five on a budget. So first and foremost, how do you get there? We came from Cape Town, so we decided to fly to Johannesburg. There are basically two airports you can fly to, which are kind of close to Kruger National Park. The first one is Johannesburg Airport, and the second one is Kruger Mpumalanga, I hope I pronounced it right, airport. The Johannesburg Airport is around 5-hour car drive from Kruger National Park, and the Kruger Mpumalanga Airport is around 15 minutes from Kruger National Park. So it is much closer, obviously, but the flights to Johannesburg were much cheaper as it is more frequently flown to airport, and from Cape Town it was just much more convenient, as well as there were much more car rental services at the Johannesburg Airport. So we flew from Cape Town at 5:45 in the morning to Johannesburg. We arrived in Johannesburg at 7:45, and if you're thinking, wow, that's crazy, like I will definitely get a later flight, I'm also not a morning person, so it was not my choice to get such an early flight. But what you really have to consider if you want to make it to Kruger National Park and to your camp in time is the driving hours. And the camps close at 6 p.m. in the evening, depending on the season you're in. So for our season, it was closing at 6 p.m. And with all of the driving, all of the stops you have to do, it was not possible to take a later flight. So you really have to look into that. I will put the link of the national park and the opening hours in the caption here. So as I mentioned, we arrived in Johannesburg Airport at around 8 a.m. and we were in our rental car on our way already to Kruger National Park around 8:30. We stopped at a giant supermarket just a bit outside of Johannesburg because we had to buy all of the groceries we will need for the next 6 days in Kruger National Park, as well as firewood, but I will come there in a second. So we had like a gigantic grocery shopping which we had to do, which took around an hour. And after that, we were straight on our way to Kruger. We just did one stop for like a really brief lunch break. We found a really nice rest station with the view of a game reserve. So we already saw some buffaloes and some other animals, which was a good pre-taste for what we will experience in Kruger the next days. I'm not 100% sure about the times, but I would guess around like 3 or 4 we arrived at the Paul Kruger Gate, where it goes into the Kruger National Park. What you really have to consider is from the gate where you drive into the national park to your campsite is a long drive as well. So for us it took around an hour, but it depends on what campsite you are staying at. So you really have to calculate that you are at your campsite at the closing hours, because else you're gonna get in trouble. So yeah, and registration was really quickly. They just needed our license plate, and we already paid all of the national park fees beforehand online when we booked our accommodation in the camp. So with that covered, let's go to accommodation. There are obviously a lot of different ways of how you can stay in Kruger National Park. There are like really fancy lodges, etc. But we really just wanted to experience Kruger National Park on a budget, but also like halfway comfortable. So after a bit of research and talking to a bunch of friends who already have been in Kruger National Park a bunch of times, we decided to book the safari tents, which is like the cheapest option to stay at campsites beside of camping yourself. And basically what it is, well, it is like kind of a tent, but it's more like a little house. It has actual beds in there. It has a fridge in there. It has a closet. It has electricity, a table in the front with 2 chairs and a grill, like a barbecue in the front. So for us personally, that was like perfect. That it was all we really needed for the couple days. It also had a fan inside, so when it got really hot, we can like turn on the fan, which was great. The only thing you really have to consider when you book the safari tents is that you don't have any kitchenware in there. So basically it just comes with, I think, 3 glasses and 2 cups. And I think like 2 spoons or something. So you don't have any knives, any forks, any plates, anything literally. So as we had only hand luggage on our flight, we were also not able to transport any knives, etc. So what we did is we went to the camp supermarket and bought some plastic plates and some knives which were available there. In general, I would say the camp supermarkets are really well equipped. So it's basically with everything you would probably need when you want to do a safari, and everything you possibly could have forgotten. And it is not as expensive as you would expect. So it's quite reasonable from the pricing, also for the food, which was really surprising for us. So don't worry if you forget something, it will probably be available in the camp supermarket. The second thing you really have to consider when you are booking the safari tents at Kruger National Park is that you will not have any kitchen, so you don't have any hot plates or anything. You just have this barbecue grill, so you will have to have barbecue each and every evening, which takes a bit more time and is a bit exhausting, but well, it's also part of the experience, I would say. So you also have to buy firewood or some burning things, you know, coal or whatever you need to make a barbecue in the evening, and maybe also something where you can put your food on, because the grill is a bit gross. So now regarding camps, because there are so many different campsites you can stay in when you're in Kruger, we personally were mostly interested about seeing like the big predators such as lions, leopards, cheetahs, hyenas, and to see those kind of animals together with a lot of other animals obviously, but to be able to see like the big predators, you should be close to the predator area or staying inside the predator area where they mostly live. And the camps that are in there are Skukuza, which was a camp we stayed in, and apparently also Satara, which is another camp. We haven't been there, but apparently it's also good for big predator sightings. So that's just really what you should consider, because we personally didn't thought that the distances were so far, but in the end it turned out you basically really only be able to drive around in more or less the area of your camp, because it's quite far. So you really should choose your camp wisely if you don't want to jump like from one camp to the other and like sleep at one camp the one night and at the other camp the other night. Now let's talk about the actual reason you came to Kruger National Park: to see the big 5 or a lot of really interesting animals. And one really good tip I have for you if you go to Kruger National Park is to buy like this kind of magazine. It is called Map and Guide Kruger Park from Tinkers. You will find it in each and every shop at Kruger National Park. Honestly, it's everywhere, and I would really highly recommend it to you, because the maps you will get for free are not very detailed, and here you have like really detailed maps of each and every region of the national park, and you will also see the distances. You will see what kind of dirt roads are there, and it's just like really great for orientation, because else you will get lost quite quickly. Also there, we bought like the more extended version of this map, where there are also recommended game drives you can do in the morning, midday and evening, depending on what camp you're staying in and what you will probably see or what is possible to see around these areas. And in the back you will have all of the animals listed. You will also have like a big map of Kruger where it says which areas are the most likely to see which kind of animals, which is also really interesting. And here you have like all of the animals that you will be able to see in Kruger listed. And if you see something, you can just cross it. So it makes the game tries much more fun and informative about like what kind of animals you saw. So we really use this map each and every day, and it was like our guide every time. So if you go there, I would highly recommend to get a map because it really helps you to find your way through Kruger. Okay, now about the main part, the animal sightings and especially seeing the big five. I personally have to admit that my hopes were not really high to be able to see all of the big five. I don't know why I was so pessimistic, but I have been in a bunch of other national parks before and I always was not able to see all of the animals I hoped for. So I just didn't want to get my hopes too high, but honestly, like firstly, we saw all of the big fives and it was an amazing experience. Like it was not just some normal sightings far away, it was actually really close encounters and it was amazing. So in general, in Kruger, you will for sure be able to see animals such as elephants, giraffes, zebras, buffaloes, probably also hippos and a bunch of like antelopes or other herbivores, which are almost everywhere. Regarding the more interesting animals or the ones that are a bit less common to see, lions, leopards, cheetahs. We didn't see any cheetahs, but we saw lions and leopards multiple times. My biggest tip to see the big predators is firstly to stay in a camp that is in the predator area, as I mentioned before, so Skukuza or Satara. And the second biggest tip, and that will make or break like if you see them or not, is to go out the earliest possible in the morning. So usually the gates open around like 5:30. It is always depending on the season, so be informed on when the gates open, but in general they open quite early and we always made sure to be one of the first vehicles to exit the gate in the morning.
So it's 5:20 right now. We woke up at 5 and we're heading out in a second. The gates are opening at 5:30 and we try to be one of the first ones to go out. And it's slowly getting a bit more light.
The reason for that is that the big predators, that's at least what I think, really like the warm asphalt in the night, during the night, so they sleep on the streets. And if you are one of the first cars to drive out, it is very likely that you will see some of the big predator animals still sleeping on the side of the road. They maybe wake up during you arriving there as a car, or they will sleep a bit longer, and then you will see them like active, waking up and walking away. And if you're one of the cars, like, you know, the 10th one in a row, and all of the other cars stop and look at the animals, and the animals eventually will go away, you won't be able to see the animals even though you were quite close to see it. So it makes sense to be also one of the first vehicles to go out of the campsite in the morning. And that way we saw most of the big predators in really close encounters. So just to sum it up, the first morning we went out pretty early. We saw a bunch of hyenas.
Look, there's a hyena lying right here and there's another one under the bush.
It was amazing, and it was also at one of the dirt roads, so it was not on the main street. So there were not a lot of other vehicles. We were able to see them quite long, like 15 minutes. They were around our car, in front of our car, interacting with each other. It was really, really beautiful. And I personally wanted to see hyenas more than lions, so I was really, really excited. The second morning we went out with one of the safari vehicles from our campsite, and we booked it in advance. It has some perks. So for example, these safari guided tour vehicles are allowed to exit the camp earlier, like half an hour earlier than, or like an hour earlier than the personal vehicle. So we thought that we might see even more, as there are no other vehicles out there at that time. But we were a bit disappointed. We didn't see much. It was quite dark. We saw some hippos active in the water, and then in the end we actually did see a male lion who just hunted something. But in general, it was like quite far away. It was quite a short sighting, and the encounters we had in our personal vehicle the morning after that was like much better, because in the morning after we went out as one of the first vehicles and we encountered 3 male lions sleeping on the side of the road, and they were waking up. They were walking around our car.
Just came out in the morning and here are like 3 male lions right next to the street. It's really fucking cool. Look there.
It was just really, really cool. Like, this was like probably the coolest encounter we had with animals in Kruger National Park. And they were there for quite a long time, so they were really, really close around our vehicle, and then eventually they walked off. And at the fourth morning, we also went out quite early, and we were lucky enough that a leopard was just walking right in front of our car, sitting on the street.
There's a leopard on the road. Look at that. He's just not going. He's not going away.
And then walking off to the river to drink something in the morning. That happens quite a lot. So if you're looking for leopards, it's most likely that they're around riverbeds. Probably a little also with lions, that they're around some water areas. But in general, I would say it's a bit of luck and of opportunity that you are one of the first vehicles to go out. Because, as I just mentioned, like, if you are there but you are one of the vehicles like in the back, you probably won't see much of the animal sighting, because a lot of the animal sightings are quite briefly. With that said, I also have to mention that we did see some of the big predators during the day as well. We saw a leopard hunting for a split second, but I didn't catch it on video because it was so quick. But it was quite cool and exciting. We did see a female lion with a bunch of cubs, but it was quite far away, and you can only really see it with like binoculars or a camera and really zoomed in. And we did see another leopard in a tree, but also very far away, so you can only see it with like a camera taking a photo and zooming into the photo. So it was not a close encounter. Another tip I have for you is that there are boards of the areas always at the reception of each camp, or also at some rest stops at Kruger National Park, and all of the people who were seeing some animals around will put like a little dot where they saw different sightings. And if you're lucky enough, you can just go to this area and have a look if the animals are still somewhere around. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes they already moved on and you won't find them anymore. Okay, so with that said, I just wanted to give you a quick cost overview. I'm just gonna read it from my computer. So for the flights forth and back with FlySafair, we paid 140 euros per person. For the car rental, we paid also around 140 euros, which is like around 70 euros per person. We fueled the car around 3 times, which was around 100 euros, so 50 euros per person. The fuel is quite cheap in South Africa. We had a big shopping as well as some smaller ones in Kruger, which sums up to 100 euros, so 50 euros per person again. And the campsite plus the national park fees were 482 euros, so 241 euro per person for 5 nights at Kruger National Park in the safari tents. So in total, it comes down to around 550 euros for a 6-day safari trip to Kruger National Park from Cape Town. And I know this is quite a lot of money for spending it on only 6 days, but it has been a long dream of mine to go to Kruger National Park and see these animals in their like natural habitat very closely, and it has come true. It was really honestly worth it for me personally, and it was probably like the lowest budget you can do for visiting Kruger National Park. So if you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I try to answer all of them. I hope this video helped you to plan your trip to Kruger National Park a bit better and know what to expect, and then I'll see you in the next video. Bye!